from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, and I'm happy to be here with you. It is Wednesday night, and today's the 9th of August. Big day for me, because 6 years ago today, I held my dad's hand as he went to be with the Lord, and I always like to acknowledge the old man. I like to call him my OG. On August 9th every year because, hey, he was my dad. He was my hero. He was a guy I always aspired to be like. Tough as nails, this guy. And you've probably heard me talk about him anecdotally a million times, but today I'm dedicating the show to him because, that's what dads are for, right? To dedicate shows to. And on another note that's somewhat somber, Barbara from Harlem, a longtime caller of mine from New York City, super patriot, incredible activist in the New York area. She's also gone to be with the Lord, and I wish my deepest condolences to her family. My prayers and thoughts are with them, her daughter, BB Reed, and the rest of her family. I know so many of the conservative patriots in New York are feeling this loss. Barbara from Harlem, she'd written an amazing book, and she's just a remarkable woman. And I know I usually don't start on those types of items. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't not address those things. And I also wanted to make sure that they were front and center as well, because I think they're important. So we're going to have a great show today. We do have a pretty solid group of guests and great conversation that's coming your way. So don't go anywhere, right? Just get ready for that. But I want to talk about a couple of things that are going on. This smash and grab stuff, right? We keep seeing them. There was a smash and grab that happened in somewhere in California, I think. And Glendale, California. And, I'm looking at this, and I can't not address it, right? This is a horrible problem. And I was just, kind of working my thoughts through before we got on the air. And I was telling Mr. Hinton in the control room that this is very contrived, right? It's very contrived. Just like the situation at the border is contrived. And I don't mean contrived like they're making it up. I mean intentional, right? This was something that they totally intended to do. They made sure this happened. They made this up so that would happen. And when the left comes and says, look, we need more votes, or we need more people, or we need to diversify the electorate, right? Or we need more people in this district or that district. We don't like immigration. We want an open border, whatever, right? Because I can't say that everybody, left of center shares every one of those sentiments. I mean, even Barack Obama was not a pro-amnesty kind of guy, right? He pushed DACA, but he was, by many, he was known as the deporter-in-chief, right? He is the architect of kids in cages. Those are his cages. He built those. And he did deport more people than anybody. So with that being said, even he wouldn't agree with the situation there. And we're going to get into a conversation on that. But the way that we see this chaos at the border, this is because they want that to happen. Now, the reason why they want it to happen varies. There's a lot of people that have varied interests, right? You've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce crowd that I would dare to say they want unlimited labor. Right, I think there are cartel groups out there that are smuggling people. They want an open border. I think there are people in these factories where they keep catching little kids working in these overnight shifts. Even 9 different McDonald's had a raid, and there were little kids there. We covered that about a month and a half ago. So clearly, there's a desire to have these people here. In the same way, I think there's a desire for reparations. There's a desire to try and heal a wound, whether it's a genuine one or not, right? I've never been a fan of race hustlers like Al Sharpton and others that promote these ideas that we should engage in ideas like reparations, or that we should we should constantly chip away at a chasm that, in my opinion, was healed or filled. I grew up in New York City with every race. And the idea of racism was literally a historic idea. I didn't experience it. I didn't know what it was as a little kid. Today, I still don't see racism. I see people telling me that there is racism. And I'm not saying I'm blind that there is no racism. Look, people have called me the SPIC word and, thrown things at me. Clearly, that was racist. But what I mean is the systemic racism that we hear about and this rampant racism. And again, I'm okay with chalking it up as a difference of opinion. I don't see it. I see opportunity. I see success for so many people. But there are people that want things to happen, and they're willing to work with people in the government in different ways to get to what they want. And it's starting to look to me like if you want to have reparations, but you can't figure out a way to pull it off because you don't have the money, right? Gavin Newsom in California, everybody in California is like, we're going to give this money, we're going to give that money, we're going to give millions here. Each person's going to get $1 million this, $1 million that. Everybody's getting something. But ultimately, you end up in a place where you can't do it because they're running out of money. They've run the state of California into the ground. So what happens? Well, I think what happens here is the same as the border. Everybody has a desire, and they can't make it happen by offering blanket amnesty or saying we have an open border, come one, come all, just come on in because we need you for this and this and this, cheap labor, overnight labor, whatever it is. More people living in a district so congressional people can continue to, get high on the pork that they're addicted to. And I think they do the same thing with reparations, and we're seeing it play out. And it's so unfortunate for the entirety of America because you've got people that are, in my opinion, being duped into conducting these smash and grab robberies, right? They've been told by their community leaders that they were owed this money. They are told now by their district attorneys that say, we are not going to prosecute. They're told by the media and the news that they're consuming that there's somehow people against you because of the color of your skin. And it's almost like we're egging on a situation where when they make these announcements, they do it right in areas that are close to these places where they have these luxury stores. And it's almost like they're inviting the problems. And I think that's a heck of a way to treat people in a bad way, right? It's wrong to entice people to go and do these things after you pour on them that they're owed this and they're owed that. So this backdoor way of reparations through faulty DAs that are, not prosecuting, but instead being pro-crime and progressive in their roles as prosecutors, and politicians that are, promising things they can never deliver, is creating a situation where we are corrupting young people in their minds and in their deeds. And it's got to stop. And I just wanted to get that off my chest because I think it's truly despicable that we are creating, in my opinion, a phony racism just to try to appease a political movement that is led by race hustlers. Disgraceful. Anyway, there is more to come straight ahead. Happy to be with you tonight. Big show tonight. We've got a lot to discuss. I want you to kick up your shoes, sit back, relax, enjoy the show for the next 3 hours from till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm with you. I am Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And a bit of breaking news. The candidate in Ecuador for president, Fernando Villavicencio, he was shot and killed. And the BBC News is reporting this, and they're speculating that this may have something to do with him going against the cartels, saying the cartels had too much influence in politics. That's still being developed. I'll get into it a little bit later. But speaking of cartels, they continue to do what they're doing at the border. And the squad and one of their newest members, Jamal Bowman from New York, he admits that Democrats are looking bad over the illegal immigration crisis, and he's calling on Biden to show some leadership on this. This is a pretty interesting thing, right? A Democrat from New York calling on Biden to show leadership. In some of his comments to reporters, he pointed out that the margins for Democrats to claw back the White House are slim, and warned that handling the influx of undocumented people in New York would be critical in the 2024 election. People in New York are not happy. You've got immigrants in New York that are not happy. The mayor sounds like Mark Morgan all of a sudden, right? Mayor Eric Adams, he's saying, don't come, go home. We've got to close the borders. It's really funny to me, but it's not funny. It's actually pretty serious. And speaking of Mark Morgan, I want to bring him in. Mark Morgan, you guys know him. He was Obama's border chief. Then he served as acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol during the Trump administration. And he's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mark Morgan, welcome, sir.
Rich, as always, thanks for having me on tonight.
It's my pleasure. And again, folks, if you can't put the voice with the face, Mark Morgan's the handsome guy that's on TV every night, it seems like you're on every night on Newsmax at 9 o'clock with our buddy Chris Plant. So you always do an amazing job there, and I'm happy that you've stayed up late to be with us tonight, Mark Morgan.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know about the handsome part, but one thing I will own is I always try to come prepared with facts.
Yeah, I've seen that. I see you whip them out sometimes. You pull them like, look, right here. Look at this right here. I love that. And I love him, Nichols, by the way. I love Nichols. He's a great guy. Actually, I always tell him I'm going to bring him on, and I never bring him on. We're supposed to have a little shootout on here, and we will soon. But Mark Morgan, I wanted to get your take on this because I think I always get excited, right? I get very, very excited because, I'm a political guy, but I get excited when I hear, the squad chastising Biden, saying that, we need more leadership and taking a shot across the bow at Joe El Baboso Biden, as I like to call him. So what's your initial take on this?
Well, there's a few things. And as you're talking, I was taking notes. So let's dissect what they said, because I think it's very important. So they say, it's looking bad. Well, no, it's not looking bad. It right. is bad, right? And but I think that's right. But I think Rich, I think that's very important, because that's what they really want to address. They want to address the optics, right? They don't actually want to address the crisis. They just want to address the optics, right? And that's what I suggest about Mayor Adams in New York. If you really look at what he's saying, he's really not blaming the administration, right? He's just saying, hey, look, we have this situation here in New York that's unsustainable. So, hey, Biden, hey, federal government, hey, U.S. taxpayers, why don't you just give me more money, right? And that'll solve everything. Just give me more money, instead of actually holding the Biden administration accountable, being honest with American people and New York citizens to acknowledge that it's this administration that caused the crisis. And rather than throwing more money after the fact, after they're already in here, how about we throw the money at the border to physically secure it and prevent it and stop it from happening?
Yeah, listen, 100%. I'm with you there. I'm convinced, Mark Morgan, that what we're seeing in many areas of our government is people using the government, using lawfare, using phony rulemaking and regulation making, and doing everything they can that they won't get sued for, and even then they'll still do it, to get what they want under the guise of something else. Like, for example, I think Joe Biden has made these deals a long time ago, saying, look, if you agree with me, we get rid of Bernie Sanders, we get rid of the rest of the people when he ran for president, I'll do what you want. And I think there were competing interests, and some were the open borders crowd, like Soros and the stuff that he funds. Some of them, I think, were, either compromised by the cartel, so they were just lobbying for the cartel to have, their business of smuggling humans. And I think some of them are also just political interests that are saying, if we could get a truckload of people into New York, into here. We can solidify our majority and the congressional dollars that come to that, saying we have this many people. So I think there's a lot of these various interests, but the answer was always going to be some sort of amnesty or some sort of open border, this what they like to call a pathway to citizenship. And I think the answer was, we're going to get Mayorkas and we're just going to open this thing up and we're going to let all hell break loose. And that's what's happening. And to me, I just don't see an end in sight. Do you think I'm nuts?
No. Look, I not only was I intently listening, Rich, but I'm taking notes, and I'm not just saying this. I'm not trying to blow smoke or sunshine your way. I couldn't have said better myself, and I completely agree with every word you just said. Here's what we have. And I've been serving this country for over 40 years. I've served under 6 administrations, both Republican and Democrat. Here's what I've never seen in that 40 years is the convergence that we have right now under this administration of both politics and ideology, which is what I heard you describing, right? So we have the politicians and the politics being played out. They see a perceived political benefit from this, meaning that remember, illegal aliens are counted part of the census. So as you suggested, we have a real possibility of redistricting in the Democrats' favor. The other part of that political perceived benefit is every single illegal alien they find a pathway to citizenship is going to equate to a Democratic vote. So we have that. Now let's shift over to the ideology. And this is where I think individuals like Secretary Mayorkas fit in. I don't think he's a politician. I think he's an ideologue. Every day he wakes up, and instead of doing the job of secretary to secure our nation's border and to protect this entire country from threats outside his border, what he's in the pursuit of is his personal ideology. And so that makes a very smart, intellectual man very stupid. He's ignorant of the fact, truth, and reality because all he sees is the pursuit of his personal ideology. So we have this convergence of political pursuit plus ideological pursuit, and that's why we're in the predicament we are right now.
This is good, Mark Morgan, because I think you're really hitting the nail on the head. I think I also agree that we haven't seen that before. I think we've seen a much more technocratic type of bureaucracy, yep. But now we're seeing a very ideological bureaucracy that's really moved by movement. Like these are activists, right? These are movement leftists that are foaming at the mouth at movement conservatives, and then there's like a real battle here, and I don't know how you fix that, because there was, I talked to guys like you that have been around forever, and they're like, I've never seen this before. I talked to FBI guys, I talked to all sorts of people. My brother's a Fed, and all I ever hear is everybody always kept their politics aside, and we did the job country first, but yet that's not where we are now. So it's a very sad place to be, and I want to get your take on that, really from that level, like from somebody who is on the inside, but you got to stick with me because we have to take a quick pause here. So let me remind everybody who we're on with. We're on with Mark Morgan. Mark Morgan, if you don't know him, you should. Former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. He's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and he's with us for the next couple of segments. So if you want to speak with him, you have that opportunity when you call us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And straight ahead, we're going to talk about what this deep state has done, right? Really, what ideology within the deep state has done to our government. And I also want to get a little bit of your views on the lawfare against Trump, because I know you have some good analysis on that as well. So, Mark Morgan, stick with us. I appreciate you being here. Folks, give us a call, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle. We're coming right back.
With Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we continue our conversation with Mark Morgan, former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and he's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mark Morgan, we left off with you telling us a little bit about, your decades in service to this country, and how, there's always been an administrative state, right? There's always been a quote-unquote deep state, but it's never been the way it is and as ideological as it is, as you pointed out. Elaborate on that.
So you said something that was, I think, spot on. And so the administrative state, it really was a formation of a bunch of bureaucrats and political appointees and politicians and et cetera. And we've had that on both sides, right? Both Republican and Democratic administration. But again, what I've seen a convergence of in this administration like we've never seen before, not in my 40 years, is something you said is there's this ad of activists, right, that are now in key positions. We kind of got used to, we got able to deal with bureaucrats, right, and the political appointees. But the advent of the activists to the degree of this administration is something new. I mean, some of the people that this administration is putting in key, critical, pivotal roles in this administration, they have been performing the job of an activist for the majority of their career. I'll give you a quick example. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, but everybody forgot about Chris Magnus. Remember? They brought him back as CBP commissioner to do my old job. Well, I mean, he had never. I mean, he'd been a police officer for a while and a chief for a little while, but he'd really never been those. He'd been an activist his entire career, and so they just plucked him out of being a local activist and put him in charge of the largest federal law enforcement agency in the United States. But it was ironic because even he was too much for this administration. But that's the type of individuals that they're bringing back and putting in key positions.
That reminds me of an activist that ran for president, Barack Obama, and he won.
That's perfect. That's exactly right.
Since then, it's been downhill. Unbelievable.
What the only thing I would say about that is, President Obama pretended that he wasn't. Now you've got people in the administration; they're unabashedful about it.
Yeah, they
right?
brag.
They're owning it, but I think that's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. And I think it really, in my opinion, I would imagine that it really messes up the morale of somebody that's like, look, look for me, I'm single, or I'm divorced for many years now. I date. And when I date, I don't begrudge any woman her politics, right? I really, it's not my thing, because I think, I'm not really dating you for your politics. I think the same way, if you work in government, and I worked in state government, I wasn't there, I was a gubernatorial appointee, but I wasn't there just to, serve the Republican governor, although I served at his pleasure. There was a job to do, right? I took an oath to the Constitution to take that job. So in the same way, I think that's how people really once conducted themselves in Washington. But I think it's kind of really gone awry, or it's run amok, where they're few and far between those that are saying, look, I'm going to uphold my oath to the Constitution. I'm going to do what I have to do here, irrespective of politics. There's certain things you have to do, especially if you work in a national security function or a law enforcement capacity. You have to do the right thing. But sadly, I feel like that has dissipated, and we're stuck with the mess that we're in. Is there an off-ramp?
So I tell you, so yes, but before I get to explaining how I think that we get to the off-ramp, Rich, is look what you said. Look at Secretary Mayorkas. When I was listening to you, you were describing Secretary Mayorkas. This is a man who is not committed to the rule of law. He's not committed to the Constitution. He is committed to his personal pursuit of his ideology. That's it. I mean, this is the first secretary in our lifetime of a major significant department that views the law as a mere advisory opinion. He's abdicated his oath. He's overstepped his authority. He refuses to enforce the law. He's lied to Congress and the American people. He just makes up law. And like I said, doesn't enforce other laws. And he knows that every aspect of our nation's safety, health, and national security is being jeopardized. 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses in a single 12-month period. 1.5 million known gotaways, and we know there are murderers, rapists, pedophiles, aggravated felons among them. Potential national security threats could be there. We could literally have a sleeper cell plan the next terrorist attack, and we have no idea, but this man tells us that our borders are secure. It's absurd, and no one is believing. I don't even believe Democrats believe what he's trying to sell the American people. And here's the off-ramp. 2024 elections, you get a conservative back in the White House who actually knows and understands and believes that border security is synonymous with national security. And look, love him or hate him, and this is not a political thing for me. That's what Trump brought us. He was really the first president in our modern history that actually listened to the border security experts. Imagine that. Listen to them. And then He went one step further. He didn't just listen to them, Rich, but then he gave them what they were asking for. And he understood that border security was synonymous with national security. He understood what Ronald Reagan said many years ago in the 80s, that a country that cannot secure its borders is not a country. He understood that, but more than that, he actually backed that up with action.
You know, you're talking about national security and border security and the border being secure, and Mayorkas lying about it. And I would venture to say that I think, you know, under real pressure, if we ask Mayorkas, is the border secure? He'd say it's very secure. The cartel has this thing locked down. You can't get through it unless you pay the cartel off. They have it secure. We don't have it secure, but they do. And
Right.
I feel like this is such an insidious problem. And it's a dangerous one, right? I mean, I watch TV. You know, that's the extent of my knowledge of the cartel. But I know that these are bad guys, bad hombres, like Trump says. So if we have these bad, and now you know these guys, right? You've been nose to nose with these guys. This is a problem that you need a guy, for lack of a better term, with real balls to go into this situation and say, look, I'm not taking this from you anymore. We're going to have this fight. And in order to get back this operational control, to actually have safety and security at the border and really for the rest of the country. So I get that we have to change the leadership at the executive level. But with respect to the cartels, and I'm looking at this story in the BBC that I mentioned a little while ago, that, you know, that they killed this candidate for president, and it looks like he was, you know, kind of a people's champ from what I could see. I don't know much about what's going on in Quito, but I do know that whenever you go against these people, they push back really, really hard. And I wonder, do you think it's a question of fear, intimidation, weakness, lack of bravado on Biden's part, something else, or are we just not trying?
You know, I think when it comes to Biden, I think it's really all the above, Rich. But at the end of the day, I think you described it well before, is that he really is. And look, I'm not trying to be disparaging. That's not my goal of anybody. But you just look at it. Look, so I know the border. And when the president talks about the border, I know he has no idea what he's talking about. So he's just parroting what some other bureaucrat or activist in his administration put in front of him to say. He's not calling the shots. He's clueless with respect to what's happening on the border. So again, I think it goes back to the ideology and the political benefits of why this is happening. But you mentioned the cartels. Here's something that's very important. There's two things that are very important. One is that somehow the past 100 years, we have convinced ourselves, as we look at the border through our ideological lens, that the cartel's involvement in drugs, bad. But the cartel's involvement in human smuggling is somehow different, right? We've separated that, but it's not. It's the same. It falls under the same criminal. It's just as bad. And what people don't realize is that for in just the past 5 years, it's gone from a $500 million business to a $13 billion business just on the human smuggling side. Where do people think the cartels do with that money? You think they give it to the Red Cross? I mean, of course not, right? I mean, it goes back into their criminal operations to expand the drug operation as well as other criminal opportunities. So illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. We're actually empowering the cartels. And speaking of that, the cartels are one of the most powerful, influential criminal organizations in the world. And if we ultimately are really going to secure our border, it's a multi-layer strategy. First, we have to have meaningful policies that are going to allow the men and women on the front lines to do their job. We're going to have to give them the resources to actually secure the border. And third, we're never truly going to have a safe, secure border until we attack and dismantle the cartels. And we have to change the way we're going after them because the way we've been doing it, Rich, for the past 30 years has failed.
Mark Morgan, stick with us. When we come back, I want to talk about your take on the latest shenanigans with the multiple Trump indictments and more that are coming down the pipe potentially. So don't move a muscle, folks. We're on with Mark Morgan, former CBP commissioner and visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, and we have a caller with a question for Mark Morgan, our guest, former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Let's go to Todd in Atlanta, Georgia on WGKA. Todd, you're on with Mark Morgan and Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Yes. My question is, I understand the cost is around 140 to 160 billion per year under Biden, the increased cost for illegal immigration. Do you know the numbers going back, 10, 20, 30 years, how much this is costing us? And second, the increase in illegal aliens from China. I understand they're using an app provided by the CCP, which means they know exactly who is coming in here. What is the increase in the probability of another terrorist attack because of what's going on at the border? Thank you, Todd. Mark Morgan?
Yeah, so Todd, two good questions. So I don't know the exact numbers of previously, but you're spot on. So right now, FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, put out last year a study that showed that illegal immigration right now costs American taxpayers about $150 billion a year. That should be shocking. I know a lot of our attention is paid to the physical border for obvious reasons, but there are multiple downstream effects that impact not only taxpayers' pocketbooks, but also their availability of resources, whether it's a hospital, schools, and et cetera. So there is multiple layers to what's happening on our border, number one. Number two, the national security question. Again, Todd, this is a very good question. This is what really one of the several things of why I get so passionate is because we should all be united together to secure our border to prevent another terrorist attack. And I'll go back. In the first 29 months of this administration, there have been 1.5 million known gotaways. The former chief said that's underreported by 20%. I don't like to do public math, but we're looking around 1.7 to 1.8 million total gotaways in 29 months. There are about 14 states whose population is less than 1.8 million. So we've literally added a 51st state of gotaways. And we've also increased the number of illegal aliens we've apprehended on the FBI's terror screening database. So it's not a far leap to make and suggest that we literally could have a next sleeper cell in the United States plan the next terrorist attack, and we would have no idea. That is a serious concern.
That is out of control. Now, Mark Morgan, but before we wrap, I wanted to get your take on all of this lawfare that's being used to come after Trump and to, in many ways, rig the Republican primary. I think now they've got him going into two different proceedings in different jurisdictions where he's supposed to be campaigning, and now he's responding to all of these legal inquiries. What's your take on that? And do you see, I guess, what's your crystal ball look at that?
Yeah, so I also spent 20 years in the FBI, so I've dealt with the United States Attorney's Office for a very, very long time, Rich. And I can tell you, this is what I focus on, and I continue to do this. And I've said this on the Right Squad, the Chris Plant show on Newsmax, is this is about prosecutorial discretion. And what I mean by that is there are assistant United States attorneys every single day in our country that are declining to prosecute a case for a variety of reasons. And so now think about this. Whether they have strong evidence to satisfy the elements of the alleged crime or not is irrelevant to me. What we have here is a former president of the United States, a current leading GOP candidate, and a candidate of his and a political opponent of the current president. This is not the time. This is not the situation where you are going to deviate from historic precedent to go after a former president and leading opponent of the current president of the United States. This is absurd. And part of the prosecutor's discretion, they should be taking in the creation of more divisiveness in this country, the further erosion of the public's trust, that their belief is that they're intentionally doing this to interfere with the presidential election. This is absurd, and this is a huge mistake, and that's why there's a lot of talk that it appears like we're heading towards being a banana republic. And I think that's fair to have those discussions. And at the end, here's my crystal ball, is that do you really think he's going to get a fair hearing in D.C.? There's no way.
Of course not.
I mean, it's like 97% a Democrat. But we actually could be on the precipice of seeing the first president elected from prison.
It's funny, but it's really not funny. Mark Morgan, brilliant analysis as always. I want to thank you for being with us. Let everybody know how they could keep up to speed with you, how they could follow you, and the work that you're doing.
Is the best place to go, and I really encourage people to go to that, because you don't even have to listen to me. Go there, take a few minutes, educate yourself, get aware, look at the facts, and I promise you, if you do that, you're going to be with me that we need to secure our border and stop this madness.
Give us the website one more time.
Heritage.org.
Heritage.org. Check them out. Mark Morgan. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I appreciate it, brother. Godspeed.
I think the last one for sure. Thanks.
All right, my man. Folks, we're coming back to your calls and more. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, let's hit the phones. 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Bonners Ferry, Idaho, KSPT, and check in with Dustin. Welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go ahead.
Hello, how are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you.
I just wanted to let people know that the northern border is not open. I went to Canada 3 nights ago and got turned around, and there were 3 guards that I had to speak with on my way back into the U.S., and that was at about midnight. So I just wanted to let people know that.
No, I appreciate that. And that's likely in response to the fact that the numbers at the northern border, New Hampshire, New York, Vermont, they were up tenfold. Crazy, right? Some ridiculous number that it went up as of from the spring. So let's see, that was March, April, May. So it looks like it's coming down finally. But up tenfold as of March of this year. NBC News reported that there was some 2,000 migrants that had crossed the border, and at that same period last year, it was only about 200 illegal crossings. So for sure, when you're doing it the right way, like you did, Dustin, it's one of those things where they're going to stop you and talk to you, and they may even turn you around. But these people are trekking through, the woods like Sasquatch, trying to get into the United States. And obviously it's freezing up there, and, people are losing their lives on both sides of this. And it's just interesting to see how we're seeing the surge at the southern border, and we saw a surge at the northern border, although it seems to be dissipating, so that's a good thing. Thanks for your call, my man. The music means they're kicking me out, but I appreciate it. Big shout out to you guys in Idaho, and we're coming back. We have some conversation to have yet, and I don't want you to miss it. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. What happens when parents get worn out? We're going to talk about parental burnout. Straight ahead, you don't want to miss it. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. It's Wednesday night, the 9th of August, and I want to share our phone number with you. If you want to join us on this late-night national town hall conversation, you're welcome to do it. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I'm looking at an article in, let's see, what's this called? It's called Psychology Today. And it discusses parental burnout, when parenting becomes too much. And of course, look, I've been a dad for 22 years now, done it twice. I got an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. And I don't feel like an expert in any way, right? Other people say they've been doing something for 20 years. You're like, man, you must be really good at that. I don't think I'm an expert. I think this is probably one of the hardest jobs ever. And it's always interesting to see how these things play out, right? But that's where we are. As parents, it does become too much at times, and people do get burnt out. So I want to have a discussion with Dr. Vince Callahan. He's the founder of the Florida Institute for Neural Discovery, and I want to talk about when burnout just becomes too much because, people are with their kids all summer. And millions of parents, they're like, hey, when does school start? There was a survey taken last year that found that 66% of working parents feel burned out. So I want to talk about the warning signs, and I want to welcome Dr. Vince Callahan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your intro, man. It was great.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. So let's talk about this because, I think as parents, first of all, a lot of times we don't always have the best support system. Some of us may not want to go to our own parents to say, hey, how did you do it? Or some of us don't want to go to our own parents because we didn't like how they did it. Or some of us may not have parents anymore. Like me, my parents are both gone. So, I think there's not a huge support system for parents, and there are resources out there, but I don't know that everybody uses them. And I think just either you got parents, some of them who may not care, and then you have others that are, maybe care too much, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a bad job because they feel burnt out. So what are the warning signs of parental burnout?
Well, the warning signs are when a parent becomes an overthinker, an overgiver, an overdoer, and an overachiever. When parents feel stressed or overwhelmed and they don't feel like they have any resources, or they get physically or emotionally exhausted, there's no fulfillment, according to that APA article. And lastly, when their whole mental health begins to, from a global perspective, kind of decline. I think the pandemic changed us. It taught us that isolation was okay when it really isn't.
All right, good point. Now let's talk about it. You said overthinker, overdoer, and one more over. So let's take those apart, if you don't mind. What's it like to be an overdoer? Meaning you're overdoing it as a parent. I'm taking you to too many sports, or
I'm
trying
taking you
to
too many sports. Yeah, I'm doing too many things for you. I'm doing everything for you and not letting you do anything and not giving you any responsibility. So you've got parents, and all four of these overs come out of their own low self-esteem. So I've got to think for the child because I don't think they can think for themselves. I've got to give them everything because they can't earn everything. I'm doing everything for them because I don't think they can do it. And I live vicariously through their achievements. And so everything they do is what I do. And it's too enmeshed. I remember one day somebody gave me a bag of gummy bears, and I forgot and left them in my trunk. And instead of having 500 individual gummy bears, I had one blob of sugar in the back of my trunk because I forgot it for a few days. And sometimes families are that way. They're too enmeshed, and it's too much of the parents taking on the things of the child, and that creates this like you said, over everything happening with that family. So then that creates the burnout. It's kind of a vicious cycle.
So if a parent is, overdoing, right? They said, oh, I'm going to do this for my kid. I'm going to do that. And what we used to call spoiling the child, right? And if they're doing that, does that just mean that they're not the best parent, or is it a surefire sign that they're burnt out?
It is It's not about being the best parent or not being the best parent. It means that there's an imbalance or a problem. It's kind of like if you think, a baby chick has to struggle through pecking through this shell in order to be born. And someone had the bright idea one day, let's help these baby chicks crack the shell so they don't have to struggle so much. What they found out was 97% of the chicks that they cracked the shell on died because they had no will to get through life. And parents, when they take on the role of their children and do too much, because I don't want you to struggle, I don't want you to have to work through these things. It's all about what I can do and all those kinds of things. What you really do is set the child up for failure. Doesn't make you a bad parent, it just makes it imbalanced.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're setting up your kids for failure, it sounds like you're a bad parent, in my opinion. But you're the expert.
Okay.
Let's talk about this other over. You said so it was overdoing, and what was the other one?
Overgiver. They give them everything.
And there was a third.
Overdoers and overachievers and overthinkers.
Let's talk about overthinking. How does that one play into it?
Well, have you ever been around anybody that finished someone's sentences all the time? Or they interrupted them when they're talking, or they correct them at every turn?
I've seen husbands and wives like that.
Yeah, I counsel them every day, trust me, in my practice. I get them. I have to teach them teach them what basic communication is all about and how there's actually a listener and a speaker, and the two don't overlap. They have to have separate functions, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, parents who overthink, they're just trying to do it for them, and they're not letting them have an opinion, not letting them have a voice, not letting them speak what's on their mind. They're afraid to hear truth sometimes. So they're doing too much.
So ultimately, what does Dr. Vince Callahan tell a parent that walks in and says, look, you know what, I'm listening to you. I think I do them all, right? I think I buy my kids too many things. I do too many things. I finish their sentences, and I'm overdoing it, and I'm burnt out, or I feel like I'm exhausted with the whole thing. How does a parent recover?
Well, I tell them two different things. The first thing I tell them is, in your brain, what's happening is that you're dumping cortisol 24/7 because of your stress. Cortisol is the stress hormone. A lot of people like to stress eat the carbs. We won't go there. And I tell them that you're dumping cortisol. And if you're creating stress because of your behavior, you're creating stress in your child, because your children mirror what you put in front of them as behavior-wise. So I'm going to tell them, the parents, first of all, hey, you know what, let's figure out how we can change your neurotransmitters in your brain, because we have the power to do that ourselves. Don't know if you know, but cortisol, that stress hormone, takes about 15 minutes for it to peak. Takes about 3 hours for it to go away unless you do something to change it.
What would you do? Go to the gym?
Well, no. Well, you can go to the gym. You can change it with diet and exercise. But what you can really do, really simply, if you get a hug from somebody, or you achieve something, or do something well, or have your favorite piece of chocolate, you release dopamine and you release oxytocin. When you do that, cortisol goes away immediately. So I'm going to tell you to do something in a positive manner that is affirmation or feel good or bonding or connection. And if you'll do that, you'll change that stress hormone. So that's the first thing I'm going to tell them. And the second thing I'm going to tell them is what you really need in your family is attachment. Like I said, COVID made us learn how to live alone versus living connected, because we all had to isolate. And that's kind of one of my little soapboxes. But I tell people, families especially, put down the electronics. Don't be on the phone all the time, on the tablet all the time, on the TV all the time. Attach. We've got to get back to being a family and do things together as a family and have attachment and bonding moments, so that we're not so stressed out and we're not running so hard and we're not trying to be perfect, which is really what overachieving really is just trying to be perfect when we know we're not perfect.
Outstanding information thus far. Dr. Vince Callahan, founder of the Florida Institute for Neural Discovery. We're coming back to continue our discussion on parenting. Folks, if you want to talk to Dr. Vince, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you. Our guest, Dr. Vince Callahan, founder of the Florida Institute for Neural Discovery. You can check him out at drvincecallahan.com. And we have a call from St. Albans, West Virginia, WCHS. Let's go to Emily very quickly. Go right ahead.
I was just wondering if your guest is still on there, right?
Yes, thank you, Emily. We appreciate it. We'll get to the next caller when they're ready to get straight to the point. You know, Dr. Vince, there's an article in today's Daily Mail, and I just wanted to share this with you because I think it's so spot on with the conversation we're having. It says, moms share their biggest parenting mistakes so you can avoid them, and fellow parents say the honesty is refreshing. And this was on TikTok, but it's being reported in the Daily Mail. And I just want to give you a quick line from this, because the first thing that one of the moms said was that make sure you don't do too much for your kids. And I went on to read some of the other advice the other moms had, and it was right in line with everything you were saying. The other one was saying that, you know, the other side of that can be true as well, that when you do so much for your kids don't know how to do anything. Like, you know, do simple things, household tasks, simple meal prep and things of that nature. So I think everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, and we don't realize the damage of it. I was wondering, what are some other areas that may exist where people aren't, I guess, maybe cognizant of the damage that they're doing to their children while they're doing it?
Let me throw two things at you. Number one, the simple idea of playing in dirt. Mm-hmm. We don't let our kids play and get dirty anymore. We want to give them the antiseptic, all the stuff to put on, and the hand sanitizers and all that. But what we don't understand that we're doing is killing their immune system. Mm-hmm. Because there's germs in dirt that we need to overcome and boost our immune system, but we don't let kids be kids, which that kind of brings me to I hate participation trophies. That's one of my soapboxes. Mm-hmm. I think we've done more in our culture to kill kids' drive and goal and to strive after things by giving them a participation trophy just for showing up. It's like, if you're going to play soccer, keep score, and let's figure out really who won and who lost, because sometimes losing's part of winning. But that's just another one of my little pet peeves. But really, one of the things I wanted to say was burnout is just it's just stress camouflaged. That's all it is. Burnout is really stress. We just don't acknowledge it, and we don't want to say, yes, I feel like it, like you're talking about, I feel like a failure. And because I'm burning out doesn't mean I'm failing. It means that I'm tired and I'm doing too much and I need to back up some. I know lots of families where the husband works a lot and the wife takes care of the kids, and all she does is take care of the kids. And then, you know, he comes home at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and there's nothing left for anybody. And that system doesn't work. And I know people have to do things, but if we're really going to boil all this down, burnout is stress that's camouflaged. And if we're under stress, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, if somebody's really stressed or burnt out or whatever, and we know it's because they're overthinking for their kid, they're overdoing, they're overgiving, it seems to me like if somebody told me you're doing too much for your kid, I don't know that I would go, oh, okay, great, thanks, and just fix the problem right away. I think that's my speed, right? This is what I do. So I think,
Right.
how do you get somebody to realize that they're doing too much and to actually pull back?
Well, I do a training for parents called Understanding Your Child's Brain. I would never tell a parent that they are doing a bad job as a parent or they're not effective parents. But if I can teach them how their child's brain works, and I can teach them about stress and how children receive stress and what it does to their developing brain, I can get them to say, hey, wait a minute, I need to change something. I had a lady one time in one of my workshops, and one of the things I talk about is the bear at the door. When there's a bear at the door, we go into our fight, flight, or freeze mode. That's the alarm systems, all that's going over in the brain. The cortisol is being dumped, and the size and function of the brain has changed. And when I finished the seminar, she came up to me and she said, from this teaching, I realized that I'm my children's bear at the door, and I need to be their mom and not their bear. Now, I never told her she was the bear. I just told her what it does to be the bear. And
Wow.
I think we need to be able to say that to parents is like, hey, you know what? Look, maybe you are doing too much, but how's that working for you? Are you okay? Are you tired? Are you exhausted? Are you being effective as a parent? Are you yelling too much? Because when parents burn out, they typically yell at their kids. They're irritable. They get their kids in trouble more than if, on small things versus the big things. They just kind of lower the hammer, so to speak. And that's all about the mental health picture of the parent, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing too much and I'm burned out and I'm stressed, that's going to reflect in how I parent to my kids. And I'm not going to be an effective parent. It's not that I don't want to be a good parent. I'm just not going to be very effective.
Excellent point. It really is. I think oftentimes varying cultures see things very differently, and they lose sight of what this effective parenting that you're talking about really is. And I think conversations like these help to drive that point home. Folks, Dr.
Absolutely.
Dr. Vince Callahan, founder of the Florida Institute for Neural Discovery. You could check out his website, drvincecallahan.com. In the minute that we have remaining, Doc, what is the best way for people to follow you? Are you on social media? Is there a handle you want to give out?
I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I have Facebook, Dr. Vince Callahan. Instagram, the same thing. They can follow me on social media. They can go to our website. We have a free download on our webpage called The Drama Free Home. It's a teaching that I do for couples, and they can get that free download if they want to, and just visit us on our website, and that's the easiest way to follow.
So if you want to get the Drama Free Home, go ahead and get it. It's drvincecallahan.com. Dr. Vince, thanks. Really, really insightful conversation. I'm wondering if I'm burnt out or I just yelled too much. But either way, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so
You
much.
bet.
Bye-bye.
Coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're talking about parenting. Speaking of parents, there are some moms that have been highlighted in a new book by Jacqueline Toboroff, and I want to get to the crux of it. The book is Supermoms Activated, 12 profiles of hero moms leading the American revival. And lucky you, Jacqueline Toboroff is with us. Jackie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So let's dig into this a little bit. First of all, I want to let everybody know who you are. You're a writer, but you were also a candidate for the city council in New York City, and you were very vocal on a lot of issues and remain vocal on those issues. And there's been a bunch of, I guess, big headlines, some of them very national headlines, on what's going on around Lincoln Center with the Roosevelt Hotel, with Mayor Adams starting to sound like he was from the Trump campaign, saying, shut the border down, don't send any more people, we can't do this anymore. He sounds like a big Republican all of a sudden. And I just find it laughable that this is the same guy that said we're not changing the city from being a sanctuary city, we're a sanctuary state, et cetera, et cetera. And now, now that it's in his backyard and his constituents are paying the price, and people in New York are seeing the rise in crime, the rise in homelessness, the stress that it's putting on the city, they're all changing their tune. And I find it remarkable. But what's your take on all that?
So I think, with Mayor Adams, he goes back and forth constantly. It's really hard to gauge what he means exactly. You almost need a decoder to understand what he's talking about. And every number that they've provided vis-a-vis the illegals is incorrect because, as you know, the flood just keeps on coming. So the numbers aren't even accurate. I did an article for Human Events around a month and a half ago, and over 50% in some schools in Manhattan are illegal children. And they're now saying more are coming. I mean, the student body in some Manhattan schools are really over 50% illegal children. I think the other thing that's really confusing for people is the names keep shifting, whether it's illegals or migrants or asylum seekers. And this is a similar theme, that we've seen throughout the Democrats' agenda of just constantly changing the vocabulary. It confuses people. Another thing he said is that basic services, would be impacted. And basic services have, in fact, been impacted.
Well, and you know what? I think it makes so much sense that these services are being impacted because I'm looking at something here in the New York Post, and I think you're making a great point. New York City still receiving 10,000 migrants per month, with 2 million allowed into the U.S. under Biden's current claims of reduction. And it's crazy. It's disastrous. These immigration policies are crushing New York City. Again, this is a report in the Post, with over 10,000 migrants arriving monthly, demanding shelter, meals, and services. And these are pretty new stats. Despite the Biden administration's claim that it's reducing the number of asylum seekers and whatnot, the reality is that's not the case. And it's amazing, right? Look, listen to this number, Jackie. In the first 6 months, 66,117 migrants entered the country. And they're saying as much as 10% of all of this, right? 10% of 671,000 migrants are headed toward New York, right? This is a crazy number. So when you say that services are being interrupted, I mean, I think that's the only outcome you could have with that many people logging up the system.
Well, of course, and it doesn't help that he's flooding Manhattan, which is out of all 5 boroughs, the most cramped one to live in. I mean, really, and something else that your listeners should be aware of, the taxpayers in New York own 43,000 square miles of unused land. For whatever reason, New York City Mayor Adams has not touched any of that. He's hell-bent on jamming them into areas to promote his vision of diversity.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Jackie, I want to pause right here real quick. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come right back. Folks, we're on with Jackie Toboroff. She's the author of a brand new book. We're going to talk about the book momentarily. Again, the book, Supermoms Activated, 12 Profiles of Hero Moms Leading the American Revival. Don't move a muscle. Again, our phone number, 833-482-5337. If you want to join the conversation and make a point, feel free to do that. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, our guest. Jackie Toboroff is with us. We're talking about her book, Supermoms Activated, 12 Profiles of Hero Moms Leading the American Revival. And this is something that we've seen, right? I remember it was October of maybe 2021 when we saw that initial letter from the National School Boards Association that was really written by some White House staffer somewhere and eventually led to parents in Virginia and elsewhere being labeled as violent domestic extremists, right? Domestic terrorists. And we saw moms and parents and dads across America really rise up, and groups like Moms for America, Moms for Liberty made such an impact in organizing across the country. And it's great to see that you've got this book, Supermoms Activated, 12 Profiles of Hero Moms Leading the American Revival, because I think moms have been so central to the public discourse within the body politic over the last couple of years. So, Jackie, take it away. Tell us why you were inspired to write the book.
So it's a timestamp from 2020 to 2022. And 2020, of course, was the pandemic and BLM, which ushered in CRT. And these were the two things that really activated mothers that were never politically activated before. And it goes up to 2022, which were the primaries. And I knew that the left, the Democrats, the Biden administration, as well as the teachers union, were going to look to revise and erase history. And these mothers have already been silent. So I was hell-bent on making this the testimony and the timestamp of a period in time that has really served as a tectonic shift for basically getting rid of the political campaign consultants. The new constants are these moms.
Right. And how did you, I guess, narrow them down to the 12 profiles that you chose?
So they had to have been activated. I wanted people from north, south, east, west, every race, religion, socioeconomic background. I'd say at least 50% of the mothers in my book are either former Democrats or current Democrats that have voted Republican for the first time. You mentioned Moms for America. I have Kelly Fletcher. I have Moms for Liberty, Tina Deskovich. I have one of the moms that was pretty much the first one to, quote unquote, storm the school board. That's Asra Namani.
Oh, sure.
I have, Olivia Bernard, who was never in politics, and all of a sudden she ran for school board and won. I have mothers that ran for city council, for Congress, for all different offices, because once they get a taste of power, of their own agency, they realize, really, sky is the limit.
And I think that's the truth. And, you know, you mentioned Asra Namani, and we've had her on the show. It's they're driven by passion, right? It's not ideology. It's passion. It's love. It's what moms do. Now, what's the big takeaway that people can expect if they pick up a copy of your book?
So there are really 3 points. And the first one is just a layup. The first explains what activated these specific 12. The second point is they discuss 12 different angles of attacking woke ideology, and they make predictions for what is coming, and it is not good. And then the third, and I think the most critical, is they provide a blueprint, whether you are a type A mom or behind the scenes, how to get involved. And I want to say this is not just for super moms or super dads or grandparents. We're all funding our demise. Our tax money funds the educational complex that is then used to turn our children against us. So really, this book is for everyone that is paying taxes right now, because you have no idea what is coming this September, and it's not good.
This is scary stuff. Folks, we're on with Jackie Toboroff, author of Supermoms Activated, 12 Profiles of Hero Moms Leading the American Revival. I recommend it. Summertime, get 2 copies, one for yourself, one to give away. Jackie, let everybody know how they could follow you and how they could pick up a copy of the book.
Yeah, please go to Amazon. That's the best way. And I want to say you have 5 million listeners. Even if 1 million, 10,000 buy a copy of this book, it does two things. Number one, it will prepare you for this coming September. Number two, Biden and the teachers union have hobbled the market. They have created a fixed market. America's largest teachers union this summer has been required to read all 1.7 million of them gender queer. This is as 2/3 of our nation's children are not able to read or write at fourth grade level proficiency. 76 of New York public school children in eighth grade are not eighth grade level proficient in math. What are these people busy doing? Studying bonus holes and furries. I mean, we are a world gone mad. So again, please find Supermoms Activated on Amazon, and you can follow me on Instagram at Jacqueline for NYC. That's JACQUELINEFORNYC, or Twitter at JCQUETNYC.
I want to thank you because, you know what, I think that this is such an important topic, and it's one where we have to, I think, revisit often, right? People need to know that everybody does make a difference. Moms make a difference, and if we don't highlight those that have done it well, you know, sometimes you don't know how to do it, and I think these women know how to do it, and having met a couple of them, I can tell you, I think you picked some excellent people, and I'm sure it was tough picking just 12 because there's really a lot of moms out there that are really kicking butt. Jackie, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Excellent book from what I can see. I can't wait to actually read it. And I encourage everybody to get a couple of copies of the book. Like I said, get one for yourself and give one to another mom or somebody who will be inspired by it. Thanks for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for your time.
You bet. All right, folks, more to come straight ahead. We've got Open Phone America at the top of the hour, and we're going to continue this discussion with your calls straight ahead. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And again, just an announcement. I did not hit the Mega Millions or the Powerball. I think we covered that last night. I just want to reiterate that. I did not. I bought one ticket. It's funny. When I bought the ticket, there were people buying tickets ahead of me. $60, $100. Everybody's putting all sorts of money. And I can never really part way with my money that way. I expect I'm going to lose. And even though I have a brother who hit $5 million on a lotto ticket, but still, that's him. He's got the good luck, not me. Anyway, I want to get to the phones. Just again, a reminder, I want to thank everybody who voted and during the nomination process and registered to vote for the People's Choice Podcast Award that this program's been nominated for, because voting started yesterday. And I know if you were selected to be a voter, they have contacted you. You should have been able to cast your vote by now. If not, then stand by. They might get to you. They have until September 9th to get to you. And, do what you got to do. Hold it down. Represent the show. Let's go. But I want to thank everybody who registered to vote. If you did not register to vote, I don't think you can anymore. Now it's just a waiting game on when they actually, send you that email for the votes. I think they do the drawing sometime after the 9th of September. And we'll see how that goes and how we fare in that competition. But the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Jane. She's in Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. Go right ahead.
Yes. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Hey.
I want, first of all, yes, I voted for you, and I
Thank
expect for you to get that. So
Yes.
let me know if you don't. I'll have a talk with them.
I will. We're going to call your Sicilian family and have them go visit them.
There you go. There you go. I want to thank Jackie. She is, and having been, head of child protection team for 30 years, she is so spot on how to handle things. She's being, the way parents, so many parents are so stressed out right now, and our children are being cheated out of education. And I am not against children being taught, but I am against illegals coming and stepping into our lives to the point where many times it's almost impossible for parents to be raising their children. The schools are fighting against them at every step. And here, I've been speaking to some of the most incredible young people in my area, and people in their 30s, and they are saying, no, this is enough. Our children are not going to be pushed aside like this, and we have to be good parents, and we have to defend our children. And she's really good. The points that she's making and the passion that she is feeling, I think is so excellent, and more so than some educated psychologists that we know of. And she has a more human approach, and that's what we need. And we're getting more and more I'm sorry, I'll try to make it quick. We're getting more and more young people with parents, and we're all having get-togethers, and we're talking, and they're practicing, okay, how do we talk to our children? How do we explain this to them? And it's so amazing, because one of the things we have in the agreement is, all right, if a kid is really out of control and really stressed, we're going to sit down and we're going to say, okay, we want your opinion. Talk to us about what we can do for you. And kids, I was at one house. And
they're not easy.
No, it's beautiful little child in the 4th grade said, nobody cares what happens to me. They only care about the people that have stepped in, and now I'm not learning anything. He said,
that's heartbreaking.
So cute. He said, except, and I'm just, okay, he did say this. He says, except how to get rid of my penis. Do I have to do
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That sounds like open phone material. Jane, thank you so much. I got to run here, but I want to give everybody the number again. Open Phone America coming up right now. Your calls on every topic we've discussed, plus whichever ones you want to discuss. That's why we call it Open Phones America. And the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. Your calls and more coming up. A couple of crazy stories as well, and a few reminders on different things that we've got going on. So don't move a muscle. Keep it locked right here. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S. At Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Our telephone number, if you want to join us in Open Phone America tonight, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, of course, on social media, at Rich Valdez with an S. Looking forward to your comments. Funny, I got a comment the other day on social media. Let me see. I took a snapshot of it because I said, I got to remember to talk about this one. And this was really an interesting one. Bear with me. It's live radio, and I'm trying to find it. But, man, let me tell you, this was very, very interesting to me. And they were complaining. Let me see if this is it. Nope, that's not it. They were complaining about how, here it is. I think this is it. This is Vincent Dembinski on Facebook. And he says, you know what's wrong with you? Speaking to me on Facebook. He says, you hate the other half of the country that's not like you. Why do you need to talk about pedophiles and transsexuals all the time? Almost every night you bring it up. You really could have a good show if you would stop being such a bigot towards people who aren't like you. And my first thought here was, are pedophiles and transsexuals the other half of the country? Because that's what he's alleging here. And I thought, my goodness, I had no idea. I thought they were a small bunch that were making a lot of noise. But Mr. Dembinski seems to think that the other half of the country, right? So there's the half that are not pedophiles and transsexuals, and then the half that are. And I think Mr. Dembinski is grossly mistaken here. And I appreciate the fact that I could have a good show if I wasn't such a bigot towards, what words again? Transsexuals and pedophiles. I will be frank with you. I'm not a bigot towards transsexuals. I just find it interesting when they try to impose their views and their will on children in public school, children in general. I am bigoted towards pedophiles, and forgive me. I'm sorry. I take exception to pedophiles. I don't like them. I don't want to be around them. I don't think they should be a part of our society. I'm also a bigot towards murderers, if you're interested, Vincent. But yeah, anyway, every now and again, I want to always share some of the feedback that we get from social media with you. So interesting, right? Interesting to say the least. Now, I also wanted to share a story with you. I wanted to talk about this at the top of the hour, but I got caught up in giving you my soliloquy at the top of the first hour on reparations and illegal immigration. So I went over time and didn't share this with you, but this was a headline today. The FBI shot and killed a Utah man that who was wanted for threats against Joe Biden, according to a prosecutor in New York. And many politicians who were allegedly threatened by the same man. He's a Provo resident from Provo, Utah. His name is Craig DeLew Robertson, D-E-L-E-E-U-W, DeLew. Anyway, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has obviously charged Trump with falsifying business records. We knew about that. And this is the same prosecutor that has been making some of these claims here, right? I don't see where this is getting tied in, but I'm getting to it. Hold on. Work with me. So the FBI shoots and kills this guy. And the same district attorney who's prosecuting former President Trump was trying to arrest this same man. Now, the court documents say the FBI described this guy Robertson as a white man, approximately 75 years old, who was surveilled wearing a dark suit, later observed having an AR-15 lapel pin, a white shirt, a red tie, and a multicolored, possibly camouflage hat bearing the word Trump on the front. Now, it's amazing to me how these things happen, right? I mean, and I don't mean to laugh, but this guy threatens Biden, and he's dead now. And you know, just below the lead here, we see that. Don't forget his hat said Trump on it. No, I don't think we should ignore it, but I just think they're going to make this whole article ultimately about that. Robertson was fatally shot by the FBI at 6:15 in the morning in Utah, Provo, Utah, about 12 hours before Biden was due to visit Salt Lake City. So while there seems to be no like solid connection here, at least that I can see, that, you know, this guy was working. Looks like they're going to make it look like he was working for El Trumpito. Again, this is just my speculation. But that is the big story that was going on there with Biden and them. So I'll take your thoughts on that or anything else you want to talk about, honestly, because I see there's a lot of people that are on hold, and I want to get to that. So let's go to the phones. Let's go to Matt near Morehead City, North Carolina, WTKF. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir, Rich. How you doing? 80 miles north of Morehead City.
Well,
anyway,
that's more than everybody in Radioland needs to know, but go right ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I think the FBI did a good job on this one, because look what happened with that guy Hinckley that shot President Reagan.
Sure.
40 years in prison. How come he didn't get killed in prison?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a breaking story. I don't know the half of it. I do know people that are saying they're going to kill people and are prepared to do so. I think you gotta stop them. I just, I can't help but stop and criticize the media when they we're not sure. He was wearing a camouflage hat. We're not sure if it said Trump on it or not. It might have been. It's like, come on. I just, if it said it, it said it. But if they knew, it would be a different headline. Man wearing Trump hat killed by FBI for threatening Biden, right? That would have been the headline. Here, it's like, oh, we're not sure. They're just throwing it in there for the sake of throwing the reader off, trying to throw a little bit of smoke screen. Later they'll go, no, it said trucker. We thought it said Trump. Oh, my bad. Like they always do. And this is what kills me about the media, because then everybody buys it. Or at least, half of the country, I guess the half that are transsexuals and pedophiles, half the country buys the story. And then they go ahead and they say, oh, my gosh, it's the Trump people. They're trying to kill Biden. You people are a bunch of whatever. Like I told you, I've been asked that, I heard you're a Republican. I've heard a lot of Republicans are racist. So you're not a racist, right? And I mean, this is how bad the media is, that people legitimately, people operating in good faith. They're just operating with the information that they have. And they think that this is a rampant problem in America because that's what they hear. And then people regurgitate. And it's just, it's a sad thing. But you're right. You definitely don't want another John Hinckley situation. That's for sure. So, yeah, Matt, I think we got to pay very close attention to this stuff. And we got to do what we got to do, assuming that it's on the level and that, this wasn't another crazy concocted scheme by the FBI. Because, honestly, you just never know anymore. Matt, I think we lost Matt. Anyway, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Big shout out to everybody on WTKF. We're going to continue with your calls and more straight ahead. We've got Montana, South Carolina, Missouri, and more. It's the momentarily.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So it's the 78th anniversary of the bombing in Nagasaki, the atomic bomb, and the mayor of Nagasaki is urging the world to abolish all nuclear weapons. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that, but Shiro Suzuki made the remark after the group of 7 industrial powers adopted a separate document on nuclear disarmament in May that called for using nuclear weapons as deterrents. Now, I don't want to get into a big conversation on nuclear weapons, but I'm just curious to know your thoughts if you want to share. Do you think everybody should give up their nukes? I don't. I think, hey, if you got them, you got them, That whole mutually assured destruction theory is a good one for me. I think it's all but guaranteed. It's like 2 guys pointing guns at each other. Usually, nobody's dumb enough to pull the trigger because you never know. Somebody might squeeze one off before you kill them, and you both end up dead. It's a possibility that exists, and that's why you want to keep crazy people away from the trigger. But what do I know? Let us go to the phones and see what you guys know. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR, our resident historian here on the program. Bill, welcome.
Yes, sir. I thought of you today, and I also thought of Truman and the bomb. And you mentioned it real well. Nagasaki was today, and, of course, that was, I believe it was codenamed Fat Man, an implosion device. And I'm proud of Harry Truman because he made that decision, and the buck stopped there. He had a little conversation with Mr. Oppenheimer, who said, "There's blood on my hands," and Harry said, "No, there's blood on my hands, and I'm responsible for it, and I made the decision. Don't you worry about it." So I thought that was pretty cool. What do you think?
I think it's great. Honestly, I do too. I remember being taking a college course once, and the professor, Robert Ellis, history professor, he made us role play the, kind of like to war game, the whole scenario. And, we were in groups, and I don't know why, but the group that I was in, they picked me to be Truman. And I was like, oh man, it was a lot of pressure. I was like, do I get to rewrite history? Do I stick with it? And no matter how often we did it, almost everybody in the group all kind of agreed, maybe with one holdout, it was necessary and it had to be done. And it was interesting. It was interesting because then once I gave the presentation, I was like the official reader for the group. When that happened, everybody was kind of like, yeah, like they were trying to second guess themselves, but ultimately I think everybody agreed. But it was the professor that gave me the most pushback, really gave me a hard time. But what about this? What about that? What if and ultimately, he pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, you did great. I was just, busting your chops. I think it was the right thing to do too." So I think that was pretty cool. Bill, I want to thank you for always being our resident historian and calling in with very, very prominent and pertinent facts that are very, very germane to the discussion that we're having. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. We continue. Let us go to Marshall. Marshall's in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Marshall, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead. Marshall. Going twice. Going 3 times. We don't have Marshall. All right. That's the deep state there after Marshall. Let us continue. Let us go to Oahu, Hawaii, where there is a massive fire going on in Maui. Roger on KHKA. Welcome, sir.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Yes, we have the big disaster over in Maui. The worst disaster we've had since Hurricane Aniki in Kauai. The entire island is shut down, and we lost the famous town of Lahaina, totally burned out. I don't know how the fire got started, but we had the Hurricane Dora, which is about 400 miles south of us, but it pulled in the big winds from the north, and we were hit with 45, 60 knot winds. So maybe some jerk off, he threw a cigarette out the window, and it lit it up, and that was it. The whole town burned down. Have you been to Lahaina?
No, I've never been to Hawaii. Everybody's urging me to go, and I've never been to any of the islands there. I want to go, and I was looking at the reports earlier. 6 killed, 24 injured. And again, I don't know how these things start. Typically, I know in California these things start because of poor forest management. They don't take it, eventually catches fire. I don't know what the case is in Hawaii, but interesting to say the least, and unfortunate. How are you doing, Roger? Are you close to it?
No, I'm over in Oahu, but we have wildfires here out in the Ewa side, and that's the west side. We also have fires in Kauai and on the Big Island. So it's not just here, because we're stuck with drought, and I don't believe in that climate.
But yeah, I get it. I definitely get it. And I'm watching a video. I was watching a video of the wildfire, and I mean, this isn't in a forest, right? This is burning through homes. It's burning through an entire neighborhood. It's really, really sad. It's definitely wild, but it's a misconception if you haven't seen the video. It is raging through this community. Really scary to see. It looks like it's nighttime, but it's literally daytime because there's so many thick billows of black clouds of smoke. It's really, really extraordinarily sad, honestly. Again, 6 killed, 24 injured. We've got Roger on the line calling from Hawaii on KHKA. So, Roger, again, in Oahu, Hawaii. What else can you tell us?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I called about illegal alien immigration. That was my main concern because I heard your show yesterday.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe what you were saying. I said, no. So I got on the government webpage, ICE. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does everybody know what ICE is? And I'm
Immigration Customs Enforcement.
That's right. And when Mr. Trump took office, there was 1.18 million immigrants crossing the border. He inherited that from the Obama administration. And he deported 334,000, and 110,000 of those were convicted criminals in their home country.
Yep.
The next year, he deported 295,000, 144,000 of those were convicted criminals in their home country.
Yeah.
The following year, he deported 330,000. 186,000 were convicted criminals. And his last year, he deported 360,000.
You got to do the work if you want the results. You're right, Roger. And we're not seeing enough of that now. Instead, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing now 5 million allowed into the interior here with something like 2 million gotaways. It's a crazy number. Anyway, thanks for the call. Big shout out to KHK. We're coming right back. Don't move a muscle.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue with your calls across the country. Now we go right to the smack dab in the middle of the country, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ, and check in with our buddy Paul. Welcome.
Hey, hi, Rich. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had to apologize to your producer / call taker that I had to hang up on you because my 91-year-old neighbor, I think she's kind of losing her mind a little bit, Rich. I've been beside her for 30 years, and it's getting pretty burdensome. She had left her garage door up, her porch light on, and I went over to find out that she thought her granddaughter was coming after her, who's not coming till tomorrow morning. So I had to make sure she was all closed up and shut down.
You got to do that. You have to be a good neighbor.
Yes, sir. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about, did I hear right when the lady in the last preceding hour said that there was 1.1 million teachers in the teacher union that had to read this queer gender book or gender queer book?
No, I think what I got out of it, I think she said that every member of the teachers union was going to urge all of their students to read it, and I think that was the number of students reading it over the summer. But again, I could have been wrong. We'd have to rewind the tape.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. You can read it all you want, but they don't have to add it to their curriculum, because I can't hardly believe that because, that all the teachers would be like that. Now, I'm not defending the teachers' unions and things like that, but what I'm saying is I spent 16 months as a sub, as a janitor, custodian, whatever you want to call us. And it seems to me that a lot of those teachers, they're not like that, especially in a small town like, where I'm at. Now, does it happen? Is it more prevalent in bigger cities? But I just have a hard time finding, that they would be teaching that stuff. And here's where you're about to destroy me.
Listen to this, because I'm going to, first, my personal observation, right? I went to the library because my printer got messed up. And there's a library like down the street from me. So I went there. I was like, I need to print something because my printer got messed up and I'm going on the air and I need to do this. And I was doing a Newsmax thing. And they were like, oh, yeah, sure. And I looked at the number one book. It had like a display, like in a store, Gender Queer. Now, today's New York Post. I think it's today's New York Post. Actually, I'm sorry. Last month's New York Post. Listen to the headline. The largest teachers union in America recommended educators include genderqueer in their summer reading. This is how they're backdooring it, right? So they give the summer reading list. The NEA, the National Education Association, recommends genderqueer. The book was featured in NEA's Great Summer Reads for Educators, and it only focused on 11 books. That was one of the 11 books. Another one of the books that they recommend, White Fragility, a book that insists that white Americans use anger, shame, and guilt to avoid taking responsibility for racial inequality. Other sections included books to help you forget about work and books to celebrate or help you understand Juneteenth. Under the banned book section, genderqueer is recommended as reading. It was reported that the book defends the sexually explicit graphic images that are in the memoir, and this is what's the controversy that's around it. And the woman, Maya Kobabe, she's the author, she told NPR, and she said, honestly, I think the book is a lot less explicit than it could be. And again, that particular book has like a comic book looking section where there's fellatio going on. I believe it's between a teacher and a student. And this is something that they want to include in curriculum and recommend at public libraries. And then she goes on to say, I think it's hard to fully explain. I think like how a gender identity can impact every facet of life as an adult without touching at least a little bit of sexuality. And I wanted to at least not shy away from that. That's a quote directly from Maya Kobabe, the author of the book. So the NEA declared that racial and social justice is a pillar of the NEA's efforts. So again, National Education Association and racial and social justice are pillars of what they do. So yeah, Paul, I don't know if the number is right, but I do know they're recommending this across the board, across the country, and sounds kind of crazy to me.
Well, that's not what my teachers taught me, and if that's the kind of stuff they're pumping out to our school children, they either all be fired or get the heck out of your teachers union, because I wouldn't be teaching children that. They're too impressionable to be teaching that kind of stuff. What happened to arithmetic, history, all that kind of stuff. If that's the kind of stuff they're teaching, then maybe we ought to clamp down a little harder on these teachers unions. That's my feeling, And I know a lot of good teachers. I don't want to put down the teachers, but I just think that's crazy.
I agree with you, brother. And speaking of teachers, I want to get your thoughts on those. 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Gary, Galloway, New Jersey, WOND. Gary, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Rich. Well, at least there are some towns here and there that I heard are not going along with this absurd policy. That in Ocean City, that they're fighting against it, which I'm glad to hear. And
good.
I just hope that more parents homeschool their kids.
I think that's a big part of the answer. As crazy as it sounds, I think you're right. You've got to take the kids out of the system in order to send the message and to protect your kid.
Exactly, that's right. And I think if they keep up this policy, I think homeschooling is the only hope for the future of our country.
You're 100% right, Gary. I appreciate it. You're a patriot and a scholar, and it's a brilliant point. It really is. Sometimes it's scary for many parents. They're like, how am I going to work? How am I going to do that? I don't know how to teach. There's a lot of people that are homeschooling. Quite frankly, I've met some homeschool kids, and they're way brighter than kids that have been, come up in the public school system. So thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. Let's continue. Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go right ahead.
Hey, it's good to be back on night shift and be able to talk
All
to you.
right, you're back. Welcome.
I'm back, yeah. I wanted to say I missed part of what that great caller who was on talking about how he was a sub-custodian, and, of course, that touched my heart.
Oh, my buddy Paul in Zanesville. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of teachers who are members of the unions, but they're, like, politically conservative, and I say, well, and the reason they tell me they join, they feel like they have to join because the union does offer valuable benefits, such as if a parent sues a teacher personally, and it's you got to realize that there's going to be frivolous lawsuits or times where it's a good teacher.
Right.
But they told me that the district wouldn't cover them, but the union will. Another thing is workplace remediation. Sometimes school districts can change depending on who you have on board and superintendent. Sometimes you get a real corrupt board, real bad superintendent. And teachers have to have some sort of protection. It's kind of like workers in factories. The problem is there's no conservative union alternative, and to not join the union, not to have the union protection and benefits and legal assistance, teachers need that, even good conservative teachers. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I mean, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I can tell you that you couldn't offer me any amount of benefits in the world to take a job like that. And I had one. I worked in state government. I had all of the union benefits that were available. I just couldn't do it. I didn't like working in government. It was like, oh my gosh, I'd rather make half as much money in radio and suffer and starve. And I did, especially in the beginning. But I realized a lot of people, A, don't have the courage to take that kind of jump, and B, or aren't silly enough like I was to do that, to take the leap. And I think the other side of it is there are realities like children and this and that. And I just took my kids on the ride with me, and I said, hey, we're not eating steak for a couple of years. We're going to stick with chicken nuggets for a while because it's going to get rough around here. But I get what you're saying. And then the other thing, when I've heard this argument before, and I get it. I don't begrudge anybody, for getting a good job and having union benefits. But I do know that this is the same thing that people who get extorted say, right? When you have a small dry cleaner or a small restaurant, and, some mob comes in and says, hey, you got to pay us for protection. And you're like, no, I'll take care of myself, thanks. And they go, oh, yeah. And they start breaking your windows and, messing things up in your restaurant. You go, all right, take it easy. How much I got to give? $200 a week. All right, here's $200. And now they make sure nobody messes with you. Everything's good. You got no problems. They have a built-in security. But you don't want to give them that $200, right? You just kind of got to give them because you're between a rock and a hard place. So I see the teachers' unions, in particular the NEA and the AFT, I see them as extortionists. I really do. I think they take good people, well-intentioned teachers that are there to be educators, that are there to help children. They take them and they politicize them, and they use the power that they have over their livelihood in the name of protection and whatever else and whatnot. And they do that to leverage them to get them to do their political will in the classroom. And it's a vicious cycle that's going on. And it's a tough one. And for many people, they're like, look, I'm going to have to do my 20 years and do this, whether I believe in it or not, because I need the job. And I get that, and I respect it. And like I said, I would never begrudge them. But the only way to eliminate the power that's associated with teachers' unions is to eliminate the demand. Right now, they got the market cornered. So there's an endless supply of kids that want to go into public school, and voila, they've got, they're shooting fish in a barrel, so to speak, figuratively speaking. So I get it, Sarah, and it's a tough one. But we have to be courageous, and we have to fight. Otherwise, we're screwed. But again, everybody has to make a decision, and I would never hold that against anyone. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're back on night shift, by the way. Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. I appreciate it. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So we continue our discussions with everybody across the country. We go from Indiana to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Check in with Brody. What's up, Brody?
I'm hanging in there. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thank God.
I'm calling on the I tell you what, it's just really crazy times, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Really crazy times. I just wanted to say that there's a lot of people that are under this misconception that also, I wanted to talk about the FBI there for a second, but we'll sidestep that. I want to talk about the shootings in Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life.
That guy was sentenced to death, right?
Yes, he killed some people I knew. And
oh, man. Sorry to hear that.
It really hit home, yes. And there's a lot of stuff that was going on when Trump was president that he wanted to come and pay respect. And the mayor at the time, Bill Peduto, didn't even want to meet with the president because it was like everybody just loved to give Donald Trump a hard time all the time. And the head rabbi there, Jeffries, invited him. And I think it was just very unfair to pit. He had a lot of people in his administration, Carl Icahn, financial, Jared Kushner's his son-in-law, and, Jason Greenblatt and Stephen Mnuchin. And people that take Donald Trump as a person that doesn't like the Jewish religion, they don't know what they're talking about, because there's a lot of people in the Orthodox community that support Donald Trump and his his ideals and what America is and everything, and also Israel, making Jerusalem the capital of Israel. And I just wanted to say that there's a lot of people in your corner and the conservative view. And Christianity, Judaism, are you a Bronx boy? Because my mom grew up in the Bronx, so Brooklyn, that's good. I have some good friends in Brooklyn there too. There's a lot of people there, but I just want to say that this whole thing about pitting good conservative people that they don't like Jewish people or black people, it's just wrong and it's all twisted. And the media should be accountable for being real. But I just really appreciate everything that you do for this country and the airwaves, and I'm such a big fan.
Oh, Brody, thanks, man. It makes my day. I appreciate it. Really does. It keeps me coming to work. The day that I don't know that people look, we get free music and everything. The day that I feel like this isn't of benefit to anybody, and I'm just talking to myself, I'll probably stop talking. But as long as there's issues to talk about and something I'm saying is making a difference somewhere, then I'm grateful to do it, and I appreciate you, sir. You're a patriot. God bless you. And we're going to pause right here. I'm going to come back with the rest of your calls as we wrap this thing up for tonight. 833-482-5337. Rich Valdez coming right back.
is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez. Make sure you check out the website, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. If you want to listen to any of the interviews you may have missed, or if you want to listen to it again, you sure can for free, absolutely for free. And you could subscribe for free through your podcast app on your phone. So if you have a phone that works on Android, you can go to Google Podcasts if that's what you use. Or if you're using an Apple phone and you use Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe that way. This way you get a notification every time there's a new episode, and you can choose whether you want to listen to it or not, or share it with a friend. Again, the website for that, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. Plus, you could stream the shows right from the website, and you can listen live. If your station is carrying a ball game tonight or any other night, you can say, you know what, I love the station, but I'm going to listen to Rich Valdez, America at Night, and you just go straight to the website, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com, and you can hear it. All right, let us go to Evergreen, Montana. Our man, Frank, K-O-F-I. Faithful Frank, what say you, sir?
Hey, the caller in the previous hour was talking about, Sandpoint, Idaho, and north of there, Bonners Ferry, and then there's a port of entry into Canada, eastern Canada that way, and they said it was closed. There's a fire up there, and they have only want emergency equipment up there. There could be downed trees on the highway.
Good explanation.
Fallen rock, deer, and everything, moose running across your path, and it's a terror scene. And that kind of steepness in the slopes there, it's just incredibly steep. And you remember the movies like Rocky, First Blood?
Sure.
Excuse me, that was it.
Rambo.
First Blood alone. Yeah, Rambo, that was it. And that was filmed in eastern British Columbia, along with the movies like Alive, and then there was the cannibal scene, the crash plane scene in the Andes. That was actually filmed in Canada. And then there was the Buffalo Soldiers. And anyway, it's...
Frank, you are so full of insightful information. I got to let you go because the music means they're kicking us both out of here. But thank you. And until the next time, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless. I am Rich Valdez. We're going to do it again tomorrow, God willing. But until then, keep it locked right here on this station. There's more programming following me. Don't go anywhere.